At my daughter's beach wedding, her fiancé smirked and said, "Pay $40,000 for the wedding, or disappear forever." I blinked. My daughter added, "Or get ready to spend your golden years in a nursing home in Florida." I took a slow sip of champagne, smiled, and whispered, "You forgot one thing." Their faces drained of color. Moments later, chaos erupted. Margaret Johnson stood at the edge of the beach reception area, a glass of champagne in hand. The sunset painted the Atlantic in honey-gold tones. A light breeze ruffled the white tablecloths and the hem of her pale blue dress. Everything looked perfect, like something out of a glossy bridal magazine. Except she felt like an intruder. No one here was waiting for her. No one greeted her. No one hugged her. She'd arrived alone, 3 hours before the ceremony, just as Jessica, her only daughter, had asked. The cab driver had set her suitcase down on the curb with a friendly, "Beautiful place. Bet it's gonna be a heck of a wedding." Margaret had tried to sound proud. "It's my daughter's wedding." The pale blue dress she wore was the best she could afford. She'd worried about looking decent, about making her daughter proud. But the moment she stepped onto the wooden walkway from the resort entrance, she realized this event wasn't built for her. Designer gowns, tailored suits, waiters with trays of champagne flutes. Everyone chatted easily, as if they'd known each other for years. She searched the crowd for Jessica. After 15 minutes of weaving through strangers, she spotted her daughter wrapped in a white silk robe, surrounded by bridesmaids, taking selfies. "Mom, where have you been?" was the first thing Jessica said instead of hi. "I told you to be here at 4. "I'm exactly on time," Margaret answered softly. Jessica's eyes flicked over her dress. "Well, okay. Just, please don't do anything weird today. Try not to embarrass us, okay?" Something cold tightened inside Margaret, but she nodded. She'd swallowed worse. "Where can I change or leave my bag?" "You're fine. Just talk to the coordinator, she'll show you where you're sitting. Table 19. Behind a column." The young coordinator led her there with a polite smile, but her eyes carried pity. "Would you like some water, Ms. Johnson?" "Yes, please," Margaret managed. As she sipped, she looked at the floral arch, the uniformed servers, the perfect rows of chairs. This wedding probably cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And yet here she stood, like an uninvited guest, the same woman who had worked double shifts to get Jessica through college, who'd bought her first winter coat on credit, who'd taken her to every doctor's appointment alone. When the ceremony began, Jessica floated down the sandy aisle in a breathtaking lace gown, her hair styled to perfection. David, the groom, walked beside her, grinning. He came from a wealthy New York family, worked in real estate, and carried himself with the ease of someone used to being obeyed. Margaret had never liked him, too smooth, too self-assured, too cold. She was seated in the second-to-last row, next to some of David's colleagues, strangers who didn't bother asking her who she was. After the vows, the photos, and the cocktail hour, David approached her, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "Miss Johnson, how are you enjoying everything?" "It's beautiful," she replied, taking the glass. "I'm glad. So, you're aware about your contribution to the expenses, right?" "I'm sorry," she blinked. "Jessica mentioned you'd cover part of the remaining costs." "It's just the last $40,000. I'm sure for someone who's invested so much in her daughter, it won't be a problem." Margaret nearly dropped the glass. $40,000? "I don't have that kind of money." David's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Let's just say, we've done a lot for you. Jessica went against her family's advice to keep you involved. Your background isn't exactly impressive. This is the least you can do." Jessica appeared at his side. "Mom," David explained, "right? You'll help, won't you?" She leaned closer, her voice dripping with condescension. "Or maybe, we should start looking at nursing homes for you down in Florida?" Margaret stared at them both. Her daughter's face held no warmth. David's expression was the same smug mask she'd seen since the first day they met. She slowly raised the champagne to her lips, took a sip, and whispered, "You forgot one thing." David's posture stiffened. Jessica stopped smiling. "Excuse me," Margaret said, setting the glass down. "I need the ladies' room." She walked away, calm and steady, the breeze lifting her hair. She didn't go to the restroom. Instead, she slipped behind a pavilion, took out her phone, and opened a blinking message from her attorney. "It's ready. All delivered. Confirmations received." She typed one word, "Begin." Within minutes, she was back near the reception, looking as if nothing had happened. The music played, guests mingled, until a wedding planner approached David's parents with an envelope. Then 3 more guests, business partners David had invited, received identical envelopes. They opened them almost in unison. Confusion. Then shock. Then chaos. David's father gripped the papers and hissed at him, demanding explanations. Jessica's phone buzzed non-stop, emails, texts, calls. Their boutique's accounts were frozen. Business access revoked. All by order of the legal majority shareholder, Margaret Johnson. Margaret Johnson. Years ago, she'd quietly registered controlling ownership just in case. Now, it was her shield. Jessica ran toward her. "Mom. What's going on? Why are the accounts frozen? What did you do?" "I simply exercised my rights. I own the controlling stake. Everything's legal." David rushed over, no longer smug, dodging phone calls. "Look, let's talk. We can work this out." Margaret handed him another envelope. "That's a full audit of everything you've done with the boutique's funds this past year. And a list of investors you brought in without my consent." Before he could speak, a security guard appeared. "Sir, your father wants to see you. Immediately. Both of you." Jessica's voice wavered. "Mom, please." "I didn't mean," "I heard what you said," Margaret cut in. "About sending me to a nursing home. About treating me like a burden. That was your choice. This is mine. I'm done." She walked away, barefoot now, heels in hand, the ocean roaring behind her as the wedding unraveled. A black SUV waited outside. At the wheel, Natalie, her old friend and attorney, the one who'd helped her secure the papers. "You sure about this?" "More than ever." They drove off into the night. Weeks later, the boutique remained shuttered, its windows empty, its social media silent. Margaret didn't answer Jessica's calls. She didn't appear at public events. Instead, she quietly opened a small shop of her own, Simple Things, a warm, welcoming space for women her age. No pretension. No exclusion. Just real conversations and real respect. When an older customer walked in and said, "This place smells like home," Margaret smiled. For the first time in decades, she was free. The weeks rolled on. Simple Things grew slowly but steadily. Not from flashy Instagram posts or influencer campaigns, but from word of mouth. Real women, with real lives, sharing their stories over coffee and handmade cookies Margaret baked herself. One gray, drizzly evening, Margaret was locking up when she saw her daughter sitting on a bench across the street. Jessica was alone, wearing a dress they had once chosen together, back when we still meant something. "Hi, Mom." "Not Mom anymore," Margaret said quietly, turning the key in the door. "Just Margaret." "I can't do this anymore," Jessica whispered. "Everyone's turned their back on me. David's gone. The business is falling apart. Investors are demanding their money. I don't know how to keep going." "And before you did?" Margaret's voice was calm, almost too calm. Jessica looked down. "I'm sorry. For everything. For how I spoke to you. For the way I treated you. For that spreadsheet, for the wedding. For the silence afterward. Margaret didn't speak. The rain tapped softly against the shop window. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Jessica continued. I just want you to know. I understand now. Too late, maybe, but I understand. Yes, Jessica, Margaret said after a long pause. It's too late. Not because I'm angry. But because I have more years behind me than ahead, and I'm not spending what's left on something that's already dead. Jessica nodded. For the first time, she looked less like a spoiled princess and more like a woman in pain. If you ever decide to be a person, not a function, find me. Not for forgiveness. For truth. Half a year later, a letter arrived at Simple Things. Inside was a photograph of a boutique with a new sign, Closet by Jessica and Company. Below it, a note in Jessica's handwriting, now I'm building something real. Thank you for teaching me. Margaret slipped the letter into a drawer. She never took it out again. That spring, Simple Things hosted its first event, Mother's Stories. The walls displayed photographs and words about women who had given without demanding, built even after loss, and loved even when they were hated. In the corner hung a small plaque, sometimes, to become yourself, you have to lose the people you loved the most. Margaret stood by the window, tea in hand, watching women walk in. Simple. Real. The kind she'd built this place for. And in the quiet, she finally understood, she hadn't lost. She'd survived. And built a world where betrayal had no place. A year passed. Simple Things had become more than a shop. It was a community for those seeking meaning instead of discounts, a place for workshops, letters, shared pain, and rebuilding from what was broken. Margaret rarely spoke about the past. She simply lived. One afternoon, a young woman about 25 walked in jeans, backpack, and a face that felt strangely familiar. Excuse me, are you Margaret? She asked shyly. Yes. I've been looking for you. Margaret frowned slightly. My name's Anna. I'm the daughter of a woman you once helped, years ago. She had nowhere to go, and you took us in, me and her, when I was just a baby. Memory hit like a warm tide, a tiny child with bright blue eyes, her mother with a bruise under one eye, a snowstorm outside. You grew up, Margaret murmured. Because of you, Anna smiled. I have a life now. I'm in college. I'm not afraid anymore. I just wanted to say thank you. A lump rose in Margaret's throat, not for praise, but for being remembered. Not discarded. Not erased. Come in, she said. We have cinnamon cookies today, the kind I used to bake when you were still in diapers. Later, after Anna left, Margaret took out an old notebook. On the first page was a yellowed scrap of paper with words she had written to herself long ago. One day, they'll understand. Or they won't. What matters is you never forget who you are. Now she knew, nothing had been in vain. Not a single sleepless night, not a single tear, not a single you're not good enough. They had erased her from their lives. She had built her own. And in that life, there was no room for pain, bargaining, or begging. Only strength, the kind that doesn't shout, that simply keeps walking forward, with a faint smile, a cup of hot tea, and complete silence at her back.